yo, there it is. I'm right
Whoa.
there.
I'm Paul Greenberg. Say it fast before it goes unlive again.
Yeah, that would be kind of interesting. Anyway, before it goes unlive, we're live and we are the CRM Playaz.
Thank God for all of that combined.
Yeah, we need like a sound effects for it right after I say we are the CRM Playaz, like some heavenly, something like that. That would be great.
We can easily find it. Okay, folks, pay attention to our future shows carefully.
You know what else would be great?
Mm-mm.
It'd be great to do the moment as Finn, but where's Finn? Sven, what? Are you there?
Sven, you know, oh, there he is. Thank you.
You ask, and he shall come.
So Latin is the best I could say there, but was some derivative of Latin, but Latin.
Yeah, like pig Latin.
No, it's definitely not pig Latin.
Not pig Latin.
I'm saying Latin, but it's something bothering me about that.
Bother me about a lot of stuff, but yeah, that's
the tip to me is the amicis or amicus. I don't amicus, I imagine it is, but the rest of it doesn't seem to be like salvete. No, I'm saying Latin. I'm sticking with Latin.
Yeah, amicus, isn't that like a brief or something?
Like an amicus curiae. That's right.
Yeah, that. So I'm going with that only because I've heard Latin. I've heard that on Law and Order too many times to not think that's some kind of Latin. So I'm going with Latin.
Yeah,
for the
Latin
first time
it is.
Ever to win.
Latin it is.
All right, we're in sync. Oh okay. Yes, this is the first time I've ever been right. I mean, you've been right a lot. My first time.
So who are LinkedIn users? We got at least 2.
Well,
otherwise, or someone who's being repetitive. Hey, Larry.
We know who Larry is, and we know who Chuck is.
Chuck, too. Yay! Haven't seen you for a long time, man. Well, I mean, I know you were on the show once. I mean, commenting, but I haven't talked to you for a long time.
Oh, look at this, Thomas.
Oh, wow. Okay, I am going.
Wait a minute. We got to protect Finn.
Yeah, it's true.
We can only have one person with the language. Sorry, Thomas.
I do have a thought on it, though, but I won't say it.
You do?
Yeah, I won't say it. Sorry.
We need to like confirm.
I'll just say this. The language I think it is starts with a C.
Oh, really?
That's all I'll say. Yeah.
Good question there, Larry.
Well, we kind of do in a way.
Hey, Easy Ed is back.
Hey, Ed.
Woo. All right. The gang is somewhat here. All right. This is going to be a good one. We've got a gang actually to be on the show too. All right, Thomas, you need to get up off the floor.
Well, we know that one.
Yeah.
That language is English.
Is that now English? Is that considered English now? Is that what we're doing?
Raffle. ROFL, raffle.
All right. Okay. All right, folks. Sorry. It's going to be a good one. We've got a crew. We've got a crew. I was going to say Motley in front, but you know.
They're not making the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Nah. Well, we'll be talking about
not this round.
So anyway, yeah, we're going to be getting this whole episode outside of, the 10, 15 minutes we normally do. It's all about what everybody else is talking about, ChatGPT, AI, large language models, generative AI.
Yeah.
Did I just say generative or is it?
Yeah, it's generative. Generic AI. Right?
Yeah, generic AI.
AKA language.
AI light. Right. Instead of large language models,
AI light.
Smaller language models every now and again. We'll do that too. So anyway, we're going to be talking about all that stuff. We got a great group of people to do that. But before
AI with cheese.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was cheesy.
AI with cheese. Right. AI and ciabatta roll.
Well, while you're on a roll, boom. Here's something that you could talk about. That's next week, isn't it?
Yeah, February. Wow. That's right. It's a week from tomorrow. Holy God, man. We're not even ready for this yet, but this is going to be one of the great shows ever. Wow. This is our gear show, man. This is where we get to geek out, and we get to geek out with 2 of the best right? Dave Smith, who's one of the guys who got us to even geek out more than we are geeking out right now, and is also happens to be a well-known analyst focusing on the collaborative space and a professional rapper known as Wiz. Highly suggest you take a look at Engage with Paul and Kenny, where we had both Wiz and Dave Smith on at the same time, oddly. That was episode 2, I believe. You make a point of going and watching Dave in action. And Monique Johnson, friend of Brent's, millennial, video producer, superstar. She's also a social star, a social media star, too. She's got like vast audiences watching every move she's making, and she's incredible.
Look at that. So see, Dave has already got fans out there.
So who is this LinkedIn user? We have at least 2 that are being identified.
I think we got
that, or somebody who's very
we may have as many as 3. So.
Okay, all LinkedIn users, put your name underneath that if you know who you are. Okay,
on it. All right. So that's next Friday, right? Next Friday, 2 p.m. Be there or be somewhere
there. Be there or be there. That's your only option.
I think there's something else before we get to the. Oh yes. No! We need a theme song. We need a jingle. Stump. Yeah. I almost every time I go to say stump, I have to fight the urge to say stomp because stomp the Godfather.
That's right. I have to kick and scream back. Okay, so Sarita is one LinkedIn user. She made the David Mario Smith comment.
Yes. So okay.
All right, Sarita. Woo, woo.
So Thomas McCarthy, how you are not one of the LinkedIn users because we can
because your name. Okay, one LinkedIn user just said hi guys, and another one said good afternoon all. Now, hopefully that's not the same person because you're having very short memory span if you are.
All right. So while we're working our way through, memory loss and all that, so why don't we do my favorite game? Why am I looking over there? My favorite game, Stump the Godfather.
Which, of course, my least favorite game.
But I have 2 questions. And
none of which I know the answer to.
You guys could play along at home. Matter of fact, put your answers to your guesses in the comment section. All right. I was just reading, I was reading the Wall Street Journal yesterday. And they had this really interesting stat. They said that on Instagram Reels, 17.6 million, a combined 17.6 million hours are spent by people watching video on Instagram Reels. That's a lot. 17.6. That's a lot. All right.
I'm not going to acknowledge it because clearly that's meant to contrast something even bigger.
So to compare that, they also mentioned how many total viewing minutes or hours, hours are going on TikTok. I asked the venerable godfather of CRM, the venerable Paul Greenberg, what is your guess to how many total viewing hours occur each day on TikTok?
You know what I need? I need a sound, like a sound effect that just says, "Hey, Adrian," that just says, "I don't have a clue," and just play that each time. I don't think I've ever gotten an answer right on this. So I'll just, I don't think I have.
Oh, you can take
so I will guess
answer too many.
172 million hours a day.
Okay.
I'm making that up, but I'm multiplied by 10 because I'm making an assumption that 17.6, which is an impressive number, is meant to be blown away by the actual TikTok number.
Okay. You've got people, you've got like 15 seconds to put in your guess of how many total viewing minutes, total viewing hours each day takes place on TikTok. I'm giving you 10 more seconds before I reveal. The venerable Paul Greenberg says 172 total million viewing hours. And
I'm completely making that up out of absolute air.
The answer is the air must be pretty good in where do you live again?
Manassas, Virginia.
Yeah, Manassas. I was going to say First Bull Run, but the air
Right,
must be
home of, that's what I'm going to say, home of 2 Civil War battles.
because it's
Oh,
actually 198.6 million viewing hours each day that take place on TikTok versus
holy crap.
17.6 million hours on Instagram Reels.
Well, I knew it would be something big because the way you emphasize 17.6 million being sounding like it was sort of a lot, but I knew it was got to be then it's way bigger. And that was the only thing. Other than that, I'm actually off by 25 million.
But
so I'm not that close.
Not bad though. Look at, Sunil 5 million. So you were much better off than him, and Adrian 30 million. I mean, I give you credit. That's almost within the margin of error. Almost
3%. 3% would be 51 million. So it actually 5.1 million. So no, it's not.
Oh, look at Mike Boyson.
Oh God, Mike, come on, man. They're counting numbers and averaging it. What do you think?
Oh, jeez.
Of course, no. Right.
All right. One last one.
Right again, James.
A lot of wasted time. You guys are no fun. All right. Here's the next one. This is the last one. This should be a good one. What percentage of total shipping cost goes to last mile? Goes to the last mile. So how much of all the shipping expenses are all due to that last mile portion of the delivery?
Okay, so once again, this is meant to be a shocking answer and that means it's disproportionate to what you would think. Thus, it's very high, and because you figured last mile, all right, well, first 10 miles, so to speak. That's metaphor here, okay? Nothing is evenly distributed. Clearly, it weighs heavily at the back. Okay, so I will say, but I don't want to give it a majority, although that's possible. So I will say 44%.
44%.
Which is a big number.
That's a
for
huge
one last part of shipping.
44%. Okay, let's run
I'm
off.
deliberately keeping it lower than I actually believe.
Okay, 44%. All right, let me just tick down some of these other ones. Ed is saying not enough. Ed with the answers here. Thomas is in your ballpark, 40%. Adrian, 30%.
He just likes 30. He likes the number 30.
Yeah,
apparently.
Second time using 30. LinkedIn user. See, you got to tell us who you are.
Which LinkedIn user? We had Sarita and we had
I don't know who that was. Let us know
we
who
had
you
two
are.
Saritas. Two of them were Sarita and one of them was somebody else.
Chuck is 50. So
Chuck's 50.
Mike with some ridiculously long answer.
Of course.
The ChatGPT.
Way to go, Mike.
Wait a minute. So ChatGPT this is interesting. All right. So that was Sarita and Sunil. All right.
Sunil,
we got
okay. James says Sunil says 25. Okay. Got it.
All right. So here's the answer. And this is really interesting.
53.
ChatGPT was closer than anybody else.
Well, of course it is. It's going and finding data that you read. Right. It's finding literally the same data you read somewhere.
All right. Now we're getting it. All right, folks. You're a little too late on the draw. We've already got the answer. 53%. That was according to some outfit. I don't know. It wasn't ChatGPT. It was something I read. I don't know. 53%. So the closest, are you surprised? The last mile is taking.
I'm not surprised. I'm not at all surprised about that, since that's also where 98% of the problems tend to be, right? So, right, I mean, you're basically overcoming more problems there than at probably most any other point in the shipping process, unless you happen to be a gigantic cargo ship who gets turned around in the Panama Canal and stuck, or in the Suez Canal and stuck, right? So, no, I'm not surprised at all.
2.9%.
Yeah, gee, good one, Adrian. Whoa, I don't know how you figured that out so closely. That's amazing.
He went to ChatGPT 3 on that one.
Reminds me of Gartner projections.
All right. One last thing, because this came up in our whatever we call our happy hour. What is it?
It's the most incredibly effervescent hour. All of whom you are all encouraged to come to 3:30 p.m. every Wednesday. That's Eastern time. Every Wednesday, 15, 20 of us get together and shoot the breeze about a million things, one of which Brent's about to bring up.
Well, it's shoot the breeze on extremely important, complex topics that all these big brains feel a need to come together and discuss. Like, for example, who's getting into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year? I mean, that's
Wow, this is a complete list of a picture of all the nominees.
Yeah, believe me, it's hard to find.
There's
All right, so this is the visual of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominees list for this year, but we took it upon ourselves yesterday. Man, that was just yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
All right,
You
so
moved quick.
we took it upon ourselves to help the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame determine who of these people got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year. Now, we agreed on quite a few of them, right? We had Kate Bush, we had Cyndi Lauper, we had George Michael.
That's 3.
We had Willie Nelson.
4.
We had Rage Against the Machine.
5.
We had the Spinners.
6.
We had the White Stripes.
7.
And we had Warren Zevon.
Right. Those are the 8 we chose out of the 14.
All right. But we pushed the envelope a little further and we said, well, if we had to just put one name forward to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, what one out of these 14 would it be? Tell who we picked.
Now, Thomas, you know what happened, so you can't really. And Donnie, you know, and Jeff, you know. So you guys were on it, so you can't say anything. But everybody else, just who's your number one choice?
Tell everybody who our group's number one choice was. Do you remember?
I do.
Tell us. Oh, look, Adrian. Okay. Adrian has got Willie Nelson in caps. That's like a definitive statement. So, yeah, Willie Nelson for his longevity. My lips are zipped. Okay.
That actually sounds like
be putting this up here. Hey, I'm just reading them off. Willie, everybody's picking Willie. So if you had only one person to pick from this list, who would you pick? Right now, it's a landslide. Oh, all right,
Larry, Warren Zevon.
Oh, there's Mike, 2. Okay, Warren is
coming
up on the rear here, on the turn. All right.
And anyone else?
All right, that's okay. So tell them who the group selected.
Willie Nelson, pretty much. White Stripes had a very strong case that they made. Sarita had Soundgarden and Sheryl Crow, neither of whom made even the 8 finals. They didn't make any of our 8.
Cheryl got she was on the fence at least.
She was the only one that was kind of maybe, right? Everyone else was no or yes. Kate Bush.
Yeah, okay. We gave her a lot of consideration. She was great.
Kate Bush got major consideration.
Ray's
got some. The big consideration beyond the winner, which was Willie Nelson, who is turning or has turned 90, was actually what do you call it? White Stripes. There was a bunch of us who kind of thought maybe White Stripes, but we all ultimately went for Willie Nelson.
Yeah, you can't argue against Willie Nelson. I mean, that's
no.
I had a soft spot for a couple. Kate Bush. She's really good, and she did 2 songs with Prince. I'm just saying, not that factor in or anything, but just saying. I had Tribe Called Quest, and of course Q-Tip did a song with Prince. Not that factor into it.
This is going to be a very common thread running through a lot of this.
Cyndi Lauper, I gave her consideration too. She did a Prince song. She remade a Prince song. Not that anything to do with it.
Yeah,
of course, I had no problem with Willie Nelson because Prince's last name is Nelson, so I have no problem with it. So
see, my soft spots, even though the only one I sort of said publicly was White Stripes, was a soft spot for me, even though Willie Nelson was ultimately all of our number one choice. and the other one is Warren Zevon is the other sort of soft spot. And I think Marshall Lager and some others actually went with Warren Zevon as their choice too.
Yeah.
So what Willie Nelson was hands down the singular #1 winner. We have, of course, told all the principals at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, so it's settled. We know who's going to be in. It's Willie Nelson, even if nobody else gets in.
Well, the bottom line that why he won is because he was always on our mind.
Oh, God, this is getting terrible.
Yeah, it's time to move on to ChatGPT.
I think it is. I think we've pretty much used up whatever capital we had with these nice people.
All right, so we're ready to get going. And do I have the whenever you see an image like this, there's about to be some trouble. They kind of look somewhat like mugshots, don't they? I mean,
they do. Although it's interesting, they're all wearing glasses, and so are we.
Well, that's was that a prerequisite to be on the show today or something?
It seems like none of us can see, is what it really amounts to, right? So,
but everybody is talking about ChatGPT. You can't escape it. It's in every conversation. Matter of fact, I'm going to play a little clip from a recent conversation I just had with a global VP of the finance.
Sunil. I'm just saying goodbye to Sunil. He's dropping off. Sunil, by the answer is we'll raise your question about should someone pay for the subscription, even though you'll be gone. Watch the recording.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll bring it up.
So just to kind of set the stage, this is a conversation I just had. NVIDIA just announced this new study around AI in the financial service industry. And so I had a chance to talk to Malcolm DeMayo, who is Global Vice President of the financial services industry over at NVIDIA, about what he's seeing and what kind of came out of the survey when it came to AI, and in particular with ChatGPT. So let me do this. Let me play you just this short clip.
Having its Tesla moment. We are seeing with a ChatGPT, for example, huge upswing in interest in looking at how transformers can change basically and impact banks across the bank, so bank-wide. Tons of opportunity to leverage these two. One study showed that about 6% of all of the suspicious activity that is found today, about 6% of it is really suspicious. And the rest of it's just noise. What AI can do, what a large language model can do, right? It can be trained to go and understand the 10Ks, the SEC filings, the articles of incorporation. It can go check out the sanctions lists, and it can bring back just the refined number of suspicious cases that case workers follow up on. So making them incredibly efficient, reducing cost, and really tackling the problem.
All right, and that's one of those, use cases you don't really heard because most people are just using it to, tell it to write a poem or write a book report or whatever. But there's some serious stuff going on with this stuff. And you recently had a conversation with the guy heading up AI at Disney, and he was pretty excited about ChatGPT, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean, he's looking at it from a I'll call it a very, very different standpoint. He runs Imagineering at Disney, and he's had years of experience in the AI industry. In his own way, he's looking at more the idea of the generative AI versus the conversational AI per se. He's looking at how quickly things have advanced and he's already at the stage where, look, I mean, ChatGPT has been used as a giant toy to a large extent at this point, but he was already looking at it at the stage where what would be the use cases, what kind of thinking. Again, that's in the latest EWPK. I'm not going to belabor the point. Watch EWPK. It went up Tuesday at 7 p.m. It's on YouTube. It's on the PPN website, playazproductions.network. Watch the episode with Bill Klein. He's the guy. And then while you're at it, watch Sarah McDonald, who's our cultural guest, who has beat 2 kinds of cancer twice and has written a book about it and is an extraordinary both person and tech industry exec.
All right. So, without any further delay, why don't you do the intro of these three gentlemen?
Okay, I mean, this could be quick because we're going to otherwise run out of time. I've known Paul Sweeney for pretty much ever. We go way back. He's located in Ireland. He's founder of Webio, which is actually, when it comes to conversational AI and permutations thereof, they're probably the first people I ever met who had anything to do with it, really. And they've always been super innovative. Thing with Paul is he's also got the intellectual capability to kind of suss out the concepts that underlie the technology that they built or the technology they are in the process of building, so that he's become a thought leader in the space. He's got also an amazing sense of humor. He's really, really funny guy. And he's just a good person. But the key with him is his ability to pull out those ideas and make them presentable to the universe, so to speak. And he's a real welcome addition to he's a welcome addition to the show, and he's a longtime friend. Mitch Lieberman, he's one of us from way, way, way back. I mean, Mitch goes back to our pioneering days, really. I mean, he's been in the accidental social CRM group. He's been in and around all of us for years, and he's got really interesting history because he's done things from the vendor side. He's done things from kind of the analyst side. He's done things from the practitioner side, at places like Humana and other places. And he is deeply immersed and almost embedded in the whole AI world, especially generative and conversational AI, which is where he, like you, Brent, have been longstanding advocates for and have taken a look at. And then finally, Dan Miller. And, Dan is not only Opus Research, he's, Brent, I think you called him the godfather of conversational AI, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, the bot father for short.
The bot father, right? The bot father of conversational AI. And he is. I mean, Dan is probably, arguably, the most influential guy in that field, if not, I can't think of who would be tied with him even, really. He's an analyst. He's a strong influencer. Again, one thing that characterizes all three of these guys, they all have fantastic senses of humor, by the way. Right. So, and they're grounded in reality. Okay. Yeah. So we'll get to hear that now. Yeah. And so I'll leave it at that. I could wax enthusiastic.
Yeah, they have fabulous sense of humor, especially Mitch and his choice of sports teams. Anyway, here's Dan Miller, Paul Sweeney, and Mitch, MJ Liebs.
MJ Liebs. That's right.
Brent, I'm retiring again, but then I'm going to come back.
Wait a year.
Well, it's good to see all you fellas, particularly on this particular topic. So I think the way this session was phrased is ChatGPT ushering in the golden era of AI, and then Paul Sweeney actually kind of posed another way to look at this on Twitter when he said, "Is ChatGPT a replacement for CRM or something like that? Or is Conversations a replacement for CRM, something like that?" What do you mean?
He's not going to help you out.
That's a good one.
Is Conversation a replacement for being quiet?
Input error. A mine.
If Conversation a replacement.
Well, this is great having Marcel on, but it's kind of
I think it was originally Mitch who said this a while back. A couple of years ago, we were writing a paper on conversational middleware, and Mitch turned to me and said, I wonder if conversations actually just kind of replace CRM, because really what we're trying to do is have a conversation with a company. So whoever does conversations really well might actually disrupt this market. And it was an interesting perspective, and it got me thinking about, well, to have a good conversation, you'd need all the data around a conversation. So what is it about? Like, you just want to answer questions, you want to offer things, that's all like data. So maybe you get the data around a conversation, that gives you some focus there. And we've used that ourselves to give us some focus as to maybe how conversations and conversational data are very much tied together, that story. So long answer.
It's a good one, though.
Which if you map to GPT, not restricting it to ChatGPT, but looking at generative pre-trained transformers, those large language models that they're sort of front-ending don't necessarily include conversational data. I think that's one of the hearts of what we need to talk about here is they trained on, I don't know, telenovelas, Shakespeare, all sorts of just larger amounts of data than we are capable of ingesting, and it has a beginning and an end. So we're not quite at where it's dealing with conversational data.
Right. No, I think that's a really important point, Dan. I like that one. I mean, because it's not. I mean, it looked at static words across the corpus of the entire internet, but never looked at a conversation like this, unless it's transcribed. And it might have some of those, but it's interesting. And the other thing about in this discussion as well is ChatGPT is what we're talking about, but the language models have been around much longer. They just launched this website in November, but there's a bunch of really interesting applications that have been using the API and been using this since last spring or even earlier. And so these ChatGPT just suddenly it was a great application for people to use, but this kind of work has been around for years, and they just kind of I think that's a little bit of your iPhone moment, which there's two perspectives on that. Brent, you brought that up. I think it's really important. I shared and then I'll stop that the iPhone moment is Microsoft in the full stack. I mean, which is fascinating. They have the large language, they have Azure down at the bottom, they have the language model, and then they have applications on top of it. So I think it goes further back than I think many of us realize.
Well, to your point, actually, Microsoft literally about 3 hours ago announced that Viva Sales is going to incorporate ChatGPT, basically, and I assume some broader capabilities than just that. But that, I mean, Viva Sales happens to be a very advanced sales app to begin with. I actually did a lot of work with them on it, and that addition is one of the first times I can see, depending on how it's used, a use case that makes real sense for this thing, right? So I'm kind of curious about it. But now on the other hand, we're looking at, James Alderson here has mentioned a couple of times, one of his comments he mentioned let me see if I can find it. This is the one. If tech will replace most call center agents in the next 5 years. Another thing I've heard, which is sort of where the line got a little blurrier, is that, and I heard this back in the earlier days of Thunderhead, which was that conversations should be replacing campaigns. Now, they didn't say conversational AI. They said conversations. Yeah. That's what I'm saying gets blurry. But in other words, was basically taking the three pillars of CRM, so to speak, sales, marketing, and customer service, and was saying one way or the other, this is going to do something. So why don't you guys sort of elaborate a little bit on that? Because I think it's important, because we got to get it past being a great big fun toy that people are playing with now and get to something else with it.
So I'm going to start, because I think I'll kind of do the front end, and I think there's a natural segue to Paul and Dan on some of this. So I believe that to the paper that Paul referenced, conversational middleware, which is the concept, there's a gatekeeper to who should have which conversation discussion with a customer. Let's talk about a customer or a potential customer, sales and marketing and service. And we need to be considerate. And as you go down that path, increasingly, it's more and more important to be factual. At the very front end of blogging and marketing, you can be these models, you can be a little bit fanciful, and you can share great ideas about what this can or can't do. But as you progress towards really important factual questions in financial services or healthcare or industry, then you really need intelligence, right? You need the actual intelligence about the conversation. So Dan, I'll kind of push over to you to talk a little bit about that, and then maybe Paul, you can talk a little bit about what you do with it, with that intelligence.
Yeah, and to stay relevant with the questions, I think one of the key issues is that we're talking about this stuff very imprecisely. You know, conversations versus conversational AI, conversational intelligence, all this stuff. But what's had a long-standing history is what's going on with large language models, what's going on with deep neural networking. Heck, this stuff goes back decades, but the processors weren't very fast. and you know, the vision sort of formed about what you would do with large language models subject to cognitive technologies. And throughout, and this relates to the question, I've always said, if you know, a general AI comes along and is our robot master, that's on us. You know, the way to regard the, you know, Mitch, what you were calling sort of the applications or front ends, you know, like the ChatGPT in front of the large language model, is as a tool. I mean, fundamentally, this is the way it manifests itself in ways that an enterprise can consume it, make support people quicker, make bots more efficient, on down the list. And now I'll segue over to Paul, because I think, you know, a lot of his role in the world is making a product or service that's, you know, using these tools most efficiently. Paul Sweeney, I should say Sweeney.
Yeah, two.
Paul two.
Paul two. P2. Just, I think maybe just a second just to say that, like, the conversational interaction for people who aren't familiar with it, it really means that you can say whatever you want or type whatever you want in a natural way, like you're used to doing. Like you might write a note to your kid or a note to the teacher, and the technology will pick out all the bits in that message and figure out, does it have all the bits it needs to progress to the next part of a conversation? And does it need to know what that next part of the conversation is? So what you're doing is you're figuring out the intention in a conversation, which might be to pay a bill or book an appointment. You're then trying to pick out the little bits of information that are called entities, which are like dates and amounts and figures like that. And you're trying to then figure out what the next step is. What's the next part of this conversation? What's the next chunk in this conversation that ultimately helps you towards that goal? And on the one hand, this should be a great experience. Like, you're speaking naturally, you're typing fluently, it's understanding you, it's not asking you all these like non-relevant questions. But ultimately, that's one part of it. The other part of it is it should be more effective. Like, this should be more efficient and effective to get the thing done. And if it isn't, then you're wasting your time. You might as well have check boxes. You might as well have another way of getting the job done, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So Paul, I think, go ahead, finish up. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say that like that's the basic bit. Now there's layers on top of that you can apply AI to figure out, like, are we moving towards our goal? Like, is this bit of the conversation moving us towards the goal that we have for this conversation or not? So that's another form of the conversational AI, which we call propensity, like the propensity to pay a bill, the propensity to, like, even propensity to be happy with the conversation. There's a whole bunch of things that you can layer over it, but ultimately, it's about ease of use. It's about ease of getting things done, and then what do you do? Like, what can you do after that? But if you can't get that bit right, then you're nowhere. Like, that's what it's about. It's about ease of use and getting things done.
Right.
Hey, I wanted to kind of take some of the comments and questions and throw them at you, because there's some pretty interesting ones coming in. And it's interesting that Mitch, even though he's a Patriots fan, Mitch came up with the whole can conversations take the place of CRM. Paul, remember when we were at Sugar, the analyst summit, and we were talking to Zach Sprackett, and he said stories. He looks at stories as kind of taking marketplace of CRM. But if you combine stories and conversations, you get people just interacting and engaging and a sharing of not only facts and figures, but also emotions and feelings. And so when you look at what Adrian is asking here, or excuse me, James, as kind of a follow-up,
Right.
is it possible to teach these models empathy, which is necessary for conversation? Whoever wants to take that, go.
No, I'm going to start. I don't think you can. So I think that the large language models are wonderful at mimicking human behaviors. That's what they're trained to do. And so kind of answers a couple of other questions that were in there. Therefore, I don't think it's going to replace human agents. In a conversation, a large pause. I mean, I would like to see a large language model knows what to do with a question, a very hard question about somebody curious about collections. They're in collections and they stop talking for 6 or 7 seconds. That means a lot to a human. And it may or may not mean anything to a large language model. So, and I know there are others, I think it can feign empathy and it can pretend to be empathetic, but I don't think a large language model, that doesn't mean AI can't be, right? So I think that there's a distinction in there and we'll get closer. So therefore, with that in mind, I don't think contact center agents and agents are going to go away anytime soon. And it goes to Larry's point, which is it's going to take us a while to get precise on domain specific knowledge, information, and precision around, again, healthcare, financial services, auto, all those, I'll channel Prem on this one because he does a lot of ITSM work. And he says, you can't, if somebody lost their password, it's a very specific set of things you do. You can't go on the open internet and figure it out. Sorry, I'll stop. Dan, over to you.
So the empathy question, haunts all AI and feigning. And well, for one thing, live agents aren't always empathetic. So let's sort of stop there. Second is Paul used a magic word of effective, which since a lot of training of AI is finding synonyms. There's effective speech or effective language that is emotional, that is emotive, that can encompass empathy, and you can train these things to be effective. Well, that's what you're trying to do, so like I said, we still would like to help both agents, employees, customers be more efficient in finishing their tasks, be it, just using their own language, have it discovered what they really mean, and then answering in the most appropriate way. And we're getting better at that with these platforms. I'll stop there, see if Paul wants to comment.
I wanted to see if you were going to pass it over to Paul, because you're basically cutting me and Paul out of our show because Mitch is handing right off to. No, I'm just having fun. You guys are doing really bad though. I'm thinking about
recognize my football team I'm a fan of one more time, and it'll just keep happening.
We're happy about that. We're introverts at heart, so the less we say, the better. Right? So you just keep talking.
What I was going to say, Dan, is that I think
we've given you a topic. Now you can.
I think empathy or empathetic AI is a category error. That's what I think. I don't think you should consider that once a person finds out that they are talking to a machine, the entire nature of the relationship changes. It's like you're talking to a very polite ATM, no matter how good the language is, because you cannot relate to the machine. At a fundamental human level, there's a connection between people, and we hold concerns for one another. So when you've got a person on the other end of the line, and they're telling you they really understand how difficult it is for you at the airport, you have your kids there, you're trying to get that plane, you're under enormous stress, and someone says, I know, I really understand, I'm going to do everything I can. You believe that person holds your concern. And I think that's almost a biological thing. I don't believe that any machine that tells you in however soft a voice that I have your concerns at heart, that you will believe them in any way. So that's I think that's actually going to turn out to be a blind alley. The other question that was asked there was just about products and naming products and pull it up. And I think it's another segue here into large language models being customizable for enterprises. Like, how do I get my version of a large language model, train it up in my terms and against my product catalog, so that it understands something like, hey, I'd like golden life insurance for my Labrador, and it understands exactly what you mean, and it's able to pull up information accurately on that. So I think that some of the problems we have, like today, are large language models are great. They look like magic. They tell us like how much there is to go in this space, right? There's a lot of juice left in all this approach, but it's going to have to be layered in with other more reliable workflows and other types of data journey that make this reliable, accurate, auditable. And I'm still, you know, I've got a view of how that will evolve, but I think the other view is that maybe all this gets solved. Like, maybe this is just a matter of time and resources for Google, and they'll give you a, you know, hey, you want a custom model.
Yeah.
Just again, for instance, Microsoft just announced today that they want to build a custom GPT for bio information, right? So all the papers to do with bioscience, they want to build a specific kind of stack to be able to search that accurately and call out the data accurately. And that's going to be like, if that's the case, what struck me was, wow, that's like verticalization out of the pen, right? It's like verticalize it straight away. And then it's not such a big jump to think that they're going to package this. They're going to package these models for you. And that's another interesting thing. And,
Right.
and the bit about, you were saying about the sales packages, Teams has come out today with a pro package. So Teams will now allow you to record what's going on in the conversation. They'll break it down into your story points in the conversation, right? They'll show you the opening, the middle, where things were talked about. They'll break it into scenes for you. And now you'll be able to search meetings by scenes, like by what was discussed. Like, wow, very interesting. They've also brought in the ability to watermark your calls like this. So if this was an internal call, it'd be watermarked. It would be not for sharing. It will be saying easy to track who shared this meeting or whatever. But it shows that they're concerned about it. So we've built all these little packages. We've built all these LLMs, and we're going to verticalize them. We're going to embed them. They've got a huge distribution strategy for this, right behind the scenes. It's like, this is a full-on like launch. Like, this is hitting the world like a steam train right now, and no one else is ready, right? I'm not seeing anything from other vendors going, yeah, we're totally ready now. We're a little bit behind, but we're totally ready to roll out our LLM for contact centers. Like, not happening. Like, there's nothing there.
Well, one of the things you hit on, Paul, is the large language models don't understand. There's been a tremendous amount of work on NLUs, NLP, all the things we talked about a lot until about October 31st. And then we suddenly stopped talking about them. And that's really important to the contact center. And, we've shared in this team here, and this large language models are going to be amazing at helping people to do their jobs better. I think that's one of the filters that Paul, I think you're alluding to as well. It'll help contact center agents be better contact center agents. It'll help salespeople be better salespeople. But the human filter is going to be around for a long time. I want to bring up another point. I mean, you might see this concept of prompt engineering is suddenly all the rage and super important. What does that mean? It means that you have to carefully construct how you ask a question, and you have to spend a lot of energy and effort giving context to the question you're asking in order to get the right answer. And I think that's something that's going to take a long time to suss out as well.
Yeah, but I think that there's things behind the scene there, and I'll shut up quickly. But in the GPT model itself, there's like GPT classifier, there's GPT index, there's
Yeah.
tool sets in there, right? And I think we just haven't had the opportunity to really mentally work out how these things work as abstracts themselves and be able to be used independently. And I think we're going to see a lot more of kind of pick and mix of which parts of the GPT people want to use, or other large language model, like take out all the embeddings or take out all the other bits. You're smiling away, Dan.
Well, I was looking at Ginger's comment about people calling, 1 out of 6 people calling the contact center just to talk to a person, and I was reminded, because I started this back when like the most advanced contact centers that were taking care of highly repetitive, highly automated procedures were the directory assistants. And there were people that called directory assistants in the middle of the night just to talk to somebody. So Ginger, I know where you're coming from. But it does speak to a bunch of things that we've had side conversations about. So the deep-pocketed companies that can amass all this information and ingest it, the Google, Meta, Microsoft, they're going to create raw material in the form of large language models. It's going to create an opportunity for innovative firms to come in and do the things like, and I guess it's sort of, they cross the threshold when who'd you say, Microsoft is going to go vertical, but it's still, there's going to be an opportunity for companies to build industry-specific other, not the thesauri, but these massive information. And then there's a customization at the company level with the branding, with the tone, with all the stuff, knowing the inventory, sort of current stuff. So there's a lot of opportunity created by the fact that people now think they can use their own words, either typing them or saying them, to accomplish the task they're trying to do. And we're that much closer because we've overcoming humans just sort of saying, I won't talk to these things because they're awful, was kind of what ChatGPT did. People were finding they could input an instruction in their own words, and maybe the response is okay, and then they can tailor it. And that itself became a conversation with a machine, but it was on behalf of what the human wanted to do. And that's where we're at.
Wow. All right. So let me ask a couple of questions one from Adrian Spire. He's interested in how GPT could change translation systems. Anybody have any thoughts on that? I think, is there a potential that the contact center can hire people all over the world with multiple languages? And if somebody over here has a problem in the US and maybe the best person to solve it speaks some foreign language, they can still get the help from the best person available?
Well, I don't think that ChatGPT itself is going to be that thing. And we just have to parse what's going on. When some sort of computer resource is understanding what somebody says, right now it tends to be based on language packages, but quite separate from the evolution of ChatGPT. We're seeing translation similar resources, something that hears what's said, can identify what language it's in, process it. I won't say understand, Mitch. I know where you're coming from. Detect the patterns to then respond correctly. So it's similar idea. It's just not a generative predictive transformer model. It's a translator. And yes, there's a lot of investment going on there, and whether it becomes real time will be determined, but we're moving in that direction.
I'd like to add a little bit to that. Speaking to a company that does rentals of one sort, and they had 600 agents, and they were looking at how do we localize. There were global markets, and they said, we'll take the message, we'll put it into Google Translate, and then we'll copy it and put it into the response. Guess what? It worked. Worked well enough for them to use it, right?
Right.
I'm
But
glad
I
to
think,
hear that.
I mean, it's going to be industry and domain specific. Again, certain industries, that will be just fine. 80-20 rule will work. 90-10 will be fine. But there'll be certain, where I think the take-home message in my research recently is large language models. And here, it was said to me, it took me a while to absorb it, and I shared some thoughts on it. They're probabilistic. They're not deterministic. Right? They give you the most likely response that makes sense, where deterministic is the FAQ says when you forgot your password, you need to do this, right? And that's the difference. And so I think language kind of falls under that umbrella. It depends on industry and use case.
Okay, guys, we're running short of time, and I wanted to get Sunil's question up because he posed it at the very beginning, then he had to leave. He's thinking about signing up for the $20 a month paid Chat GPT subscription. What are your thoughts? Are you guys going to do that?
So I'm going to say no. And my reason for that, but I might do it more as an analyst, but not. And my reasoning is that I'm not a developer and I'm not a coder, but I posted something. I created my own API interface into the things that I want to do. And ChatGPT is just another use case. And I think they're competing with their ecosystem a lot, Twitter. I think Copy AI, Jasper AI, they're all directly connected. And somehow OpenAI is releasing their own kind of parallel to those. So I would suggest, what's your use case? What's the main thing that you want to do? That would be my quick response.
And I would say only if they give you a blue badge, and then you'll be happy.
All right. What's Thomas's question? What's he going to beat me up on?
Maybe you can answer him in the comments section because we're literally running out of time. And I know Paul has one last thing he wants to say.
All right.
So here is the thing. So yesterday, and we discussed some of this on the happy hour too, but yesterday I ran a series of Chat GPT queries, and there were biographies of Brent, me, etc. And I also used U.com, Richard Socher's search engine, which, I mean, I really like that guy. So I use it. Now, here's the thing. You create a format, you do all the things you do, and what you get back sounds, and it kind of goes to the emotional side of all this, but one place where you might believe a machine sounds very authoritative. And see, again, you don't need empathy for that. I mean, it just sounds like, okay, this is to be believed because it's being derived from information out there. And it would say things, Paul Greenberg, godfather of CRM, blah, 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 blah. And it would have Brent leading, influencer in CRM, blah, blah, blah. And then it had me born on April 6, 1951, which I was born on December 19th, 1949. It had me at Harvard, MIT. I got an MBA at Kellogg. MBA at Kellogg. I've worked for IBM and Siebel, and apparently that's around the time Brent and I met because Brent worked for Siebel also, right around the same time.
Is your first name George by chance?
I'm telling you, man. No, this thing was astounding. Every fact was wrong. Every fact was wrong. At the same time, it sounded perfectly right if you didn't know me.
But you know what? What it could be is they took all the Paul Greenbergs in the universe, maybe even in the multiverse.
There are literally hundreds of thousands of that.
They took pieces of information that could be correct. There could be a Paul Greenberg that was born on that date.
I literally just did one on U.com. Just listen to this one paragraph. Greenberg earned an MBA from Northwestern's Kellogg School of Management. I actually did go to Northwestern, but I earned a journalism degree where he specialized in marketing strategy, which I did not. After graduating, he began working as a consultant at IBM Consulting before moving on to become a vice president at SSA Global Technologies. During this time, he developed key partnerships between technology vendors and their clients that would eventually form the basis for what we now know as CRM systems today. And then it goes into my blog, the Social Customer Manifesto, which was not my blog, right? And so on and so forth, right? So, but if you read it, it has just enough that you can find it's relatively accurate. How do you deal with that?
But wait a minute, before we let them go off of that, remember that movie Jean-Claude Van Damme, the Universal Soldier.
Yeah.
I think this is the Universal Greenberg. I think this is what's showing up.
It's why I always distinguish though with the word CRM when I use my name, because
think so.
otherwise it will bring up a lot of other people. How do you deal with the fact that, okay, it might not believe empathy, but it is going to believe the authority of it?
Right. Well, there's a lot of literature that suggests that it hallucinates. And it literally uses the word hallucinates to describe when it says things with authority that are simply not true. It'll make up references. It literally will make up references on the fly. It being these large language models. I'm not gonna. I don't know many of the some of the other ones. There's more than OpenAI in this space. There's
Right.
Dan, you probably know better now. There's at least 6 that are kind of top performers, and 6 right on their heels that are doing some really interesting things. That are just, I don't want to mention individual companies, but there's some really good ones. The named companies that we already talked through, they already have, they have BERT and Lambda and Palm, and those are there. We're at the early stages, I guess, is my closing thoughts. We're at the beginning, and there's going to be a lot of shakeout. We're at the hype of confusion, hype of uncertainty, whatever you want to call it. And as Paul Sweeney said, you have to kind of stare at the use cases and see, fit for purpose. What does the enterprise actually need? What's the actual problem? Channeling my inner Mike, Mike Boyson. What exactly is the problem we're trying to solve? Because you can break this pretty easily, but they're good problems. They're problems that can be solved.
Well, Dan, please, Godfather, take us home, Dan.
One closing. Okay, so right now, as everybody's mentioned, the output of a large language model rendered through ChatGPT is the epitome of an unreliable narrator. So, and we're reading along, and you can have willing suspension of disbelief just because you're entertaining yourself, but if you're vitally interested in getting accurate information, we're not there yet. And the good news about it is that it's always going to take human intervention to do the sort of, on the one hand, where the stuff's being aggregated and putting the guardrails or curating what the output can be, so it doesn't become Microsoft K. And then on the front end, just having people look at the output and make sure that that it fits the use case, so that if it is a subject matter expert in an enterprise that reads this and says this isn't right, you have to do it, and there will be permanent employment for people, even if it's just sort of tending the output of this unreliable resource that we have right now.
Okay.
All right. This has been fascinating. I think Chuck Schaefer sums it up well. This topic has so much interest, curiosity, and I think potential. It would be great to have another session. I completely agree with Chuck. I hope you guys do so as well. Yep. We would love to, maybe a couple months down the line, see where we are with this. See if
we'll bring you back.
Things are progressing. So yeah, please come back. We're even gonna let Mitch come back, even though we know he has some serious issues with his sports.
I'll come back as soon as Brady unretires again.
Oh, we might see you sooner than later. All right, guys. This has been great.
A lot of fun. Thanks for having us.
Check out some of these questions that we weren't able to get to in the comments section. Check them out. Maybe if you have any thoughts, you could share them there.
Well, I think the key to Thomas's question is access to the conversation. I think that and I think Dan, you said it as well. I mean, it's literally yes. It just needs to figure out a way to get access to the conversation.
Yep, suck it in there. All right.
So on behalf of Dan Miller, Mitch Lieberman, Paul Sweeney, I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
We are the CRM Players, and now we can say goodbye. See you next week.
See ya.
Don't forget who.